Why is every single superhero gay and retarded now? Batman is either some soy in a therapy room crying about his parents, or he's some massive hulking mass that doesn't even resemble Batman. Then you have Spider-Man, where literally his most iconic story, Kraven's Last Hunt, is about how much he loved MJ, his wife MJ. He had to get back to her. He had to climb out of that grave and get back to her. And now, 30 years later, what do we have? We have Spider-Man as a literal cock. There's some dude called Tom who is MJ's boyfriend, and Spidey has to have a little pat on the head and swing away. Superman's son turned into some homo freak, going around kissing dudes with pink hair. Then you have Robin, who literally did the same. He's gay now. And here's the thing, you might think that all of this stuff originated in 2016, that brought about all the wokeness and everything turned woke, and the only person who could have stopped it was you. And you didn't. This has been a part of superheroes and comics way longer than you actually think. So how do we actually get to this point where every single thing you read or watch is ruined? So to find out how comics turned gay and retarded, you actually have to go back to the early 70s in the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age gave us some of the best comics ever created, period. Look up any list of great Bronze Age comic stories. You'll see all the classics, Frank Miller's Daredevil, Chris Claremont's Uncanny X-Men. But one of these great Bronze Age stories crept its way in and planted the seed of something that's still in comics today. That is Green Lantern and Green Arrow, with the absolutely genius creative team of Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. We should have had one of the best comics ever published on our hands. Green Lantern, badass Hal Jordan fighter pilot, teaming up with the street level vigilante Green Arrow. It sounds great, doesn't it? It sounds like one of the best comics you could read, and that's what people will tell you. It is one of the best comics of the 70s and of all time, but that's where they're entirely wrong. No, it's not the best Green Lantern or Green Arrow comic. No, it's not one of the best of the Bronze Age. And no, it's not one of the best of all time. Imagine if you took DC's two biggest badasses, put them together in a buddy cop style comic. This comic should have been one of the best things ever made. Instead, Green Lantern gets sat down and told a great tale of oppression and racism by some ignorant black. The first issue of this story is Green Lantern being told by some black dude that you worry about all the other planets, the green skins and the blue skins. You don't worry about the black skins. Every single time there's a villain that threatens mankind and Earth as we know it, Green Lantern saves all the white people and leaves the black people, does he? No, he saves everybody. So stop whining, you ungrateful idiot. I mean, what the actual hell? The first day this hit shelves, it should have been ripped down by all the fans and dumped. Who wants to see that? The badass Green Lantern and the vigilante Green Arrow be lectured to and be taught lessons of climate change, oppression, racism. Nobody wants to hear that, but the fans ate it up. They loved it. Without all of the fans rushing to get it and talking about it as if it was some revolutionary thing, then it would have just been forgotten as some crappy comic that ruined two great heroes. Instead, everybody loved it, and now it's deemed one of the most influential comics ever made. It was a revolutionary decision to make these heroes socially aware. This was the beginning of all this wokeness. It didn't come around in 2016. This was the beginning, and you could have stopped it. You could have said something, but instead you held your tongue, let it happen, and look where we are now. I'm not gonna sit here and say that Marvel wasn't pushing some libtard ideology either. I'm sure you can find a lot of that in Marvel comics, but mainly the culprit of this is DC. As we move into the 80s, DC started hiring a lot of English, Scottish, Irish writers to come in and work for them. DC started bringing in guys from 2000 AD. Now, 2000 AD kicked ass. It was gritty. It was darker than all your superhero books. You got great sci-fi, great war comics, great fantasy. But the thing with 2000 AD was it allowed a lot of freedom for these writers and artists. And that gave us a lot of parodies. It gave us a lot of political statements being made in the stories. Long story short, these English guys, they didn't really know how to write a hero with a cape or a hero like Spider-Man. A young, relatable, hopeful hero. Instead, they knew how to write anti-heroes. Guys that you weren't supposed to root for, but everybody ended up rooting for. Like Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd was a parody of fascism, but really, everybody loved him. Why? Because he was a badass who wasted every commie, every mutant, every scumbag who got in his way and broke the law. So it actually sounded like a good idea bringing these guys in from 2000 AD. Guys like Alan Moore, Grant Morrison. But this was soon to be one of the biggest instances of wokeness, gayness, retardation all in one package wrapped up. And its name was Watchmen. Watchmen. You've probably seen it on store shelves. You've probably watched the movie. People hail it as one of the best stories ever told. Hell, what am I saying? One of the best? People say it is the best comic ever made. It's one of the best works of fiction ever. It was a dark, gritty, noir take on a deconstruction of superheroes and vigilantes. Well, I've got news for you right now. A. Watchmen is nowhere near being a noir, gritty take on anything. If you want noir grittiness, read Frank Miller's Daredevil, you cock. B. People are right when they say that it changed comics forever. In the worst way imaginable. Alan Moore is a Marxist scumbag who made every single person drop their knees and praise it like it was the second coming of Jesus Christ. But ultimately, Alan, buddy, comrade, you failed badly. The idea of Watchmen was to create Rorschach, this character who was conservative / fascist in his beliefs, who was a vigilante who pulled no punches. He'd kill if he had to. Basically a parody of Steve Ditko's creations like The Question, Mr. A. Steve Ditko had objectivist beliefs. He believed that there was wrong and right. There was nothing in between. There was no grey areas. Alan Moore hated that so much that he created Rorschach, the character to go against that, to show how insane and how fascist that was. But what did it result in? Every single person loves Rorschach. What comes out of the story of Watchmen that people actually recognize or like? It's Rorschach. Rorschach is the hero. That's what everybody believes. But that's not what Alan wanted. So although the entire comics industry praises Watchmen as some glorious success, really Alan Moore is crying inside because he knows that he failed. Everybody loves Rorschach. The Question, Mr. A weren't insane psychopaths. They were heroic badasses. Something that you could never ever write. So without Rorschach, no one would have bought your commie schlock. Imagine growing up reading comics throughout the 70s and 80s. Wolverine, Daredevil, Batman by Denny O'Neil. They're dark, noir, mature, and then Watchmen rolls around. I don't think you'd be impressed after reading those classics. But the point that I'm making is the fact that nobody said what I just said. Watchmen inspired so many things. Denny O'Neil is a legend who literally created the modern Batman. But he took a massive misstep with his garbage version of Steve Ditko's Question, which was inspired by Watchmen heavily. Denny O'Neil is an absolutely great writer, but he must have forgot how to do that when they handed him over The Question, because after the first issue of that book turns into this messy liberal schlock that no one actually wants to read at all. And now look where you have us. The days of heroes being these masculine symbols of hope and justice are long gone. Take any hero from Marvel or DC. Iron Man, for example, used to be an avenger of all wrongs, an instrument of vengeance. He was suffering as an alcoholic, but he kept on going. He kept on fighting, giving people hope. Now look at Iron Man. He's either some cock based off of Robert Downey Jr. or Iron Man is now a little black girl who thinks that she knows better than a billionaire white guy.
The Iron Man series was shaken to its core in 2016 when Tony Stark was replaced as the protagonist by a black girl, and based on that description alone, you know where this is going.
Walk away from that, you son of a bitch.
Some little black girl who probably couldn't even spell Iron Man is somehow smarter and better than him. No thank you. Go back to the hood. Another example. Jim Lee and Chris Claremont's X-Men. That didn't sell 1 million copies for no reason. Because it didn't point in your face and say, you're racist or fascist. Come on, Wolverine. Come on, Logan. Why aren't you worrying about the blackskins or the gays? You're being a little bit oppressive towards black people. Why didn't you protect the black people? They protect everyone because they're superheroes. Anything else is just dumb Marxist garbage. X-Men gave you guys who smoked, rode motorbikes, wore trench coats, kicked ass, said one-liners, what people want. And it gave you female characters that not only were strong, but they weren't ugly or gay. Ever hear of that one? Where the characters aren't some fat pink-haired lesbian. Instead, they're actually a well-written badass. If people worshipped Frank Miller like they did Alan Moore, then maybe all of our heroes could actually act like heroes. You wouldn't have to deal with these Marxist deconstructions of everybody that you know and love. Because Frank Miller knows how to write. He isn't some dude who needs to go cut his beard and hair, speak up a little, and put down the Communist Manifesto for 20 minutes maybe. Okay, Alan? If you didn't pick picked the gay retard Alan Moore to be the face of comics, one of the greatest writers of all time, then maybe it could have been prevented. And to end this video, I'll just leave you with a quote from the man himself, Stan Lee. What was his opinion on bringing your political communist ideas into comics? What was his opinion on that?
Comics have divided themselves into a couple of parts now. There's the comics that are designed for entertainment. Now the third force, which I feel I'm part of, works of a serious nature, dealing with subjects that are not necessarily pure entertainment.
I think, Will, I know what you're saying, and you're not wrong, but the area of disagreement is this. I feel that any entertainment medium, anything that's done for pure entertainment, also has educational value. For example, when Mark Twain wrote what he wrote, when Charles Dickens wrote what they wrote, he was writing to sell a story. Those were entertainment. When Sherlock Holmes, anything has educational value if it's well written. I think the people who try to entertain in any medium, but who do it well and do it with quality, they're contributing to society's fund of knowledge. I don't think you have to sit down and say, I'm going to write a story with a message.
Comics should be for entertainment, not your own personal beliefs being injected into your stories. They're to entertain people. They're to give people hope, to tell them what's right, to teach people to be better. If you agreed with anything in this video, please let me know. And if any of you limp-wristed liberals actually disagreed with anything I said, take a communist manifesto and stick it up your ass.